Hi boys and girls, it's Miss Tammy from Little Buddy's Preschool Center. I'm sitting here on my cozy chair to read you a story. And since it's Christmas time, I want to read you my favorite one. It's called How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask me why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't on just right, or maybe his shoes were on too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all was that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, the Grinch stood there on Christmas Eve hating those Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville was busy hanging their mistletoe wreaths. And they're hanging their stockings, the Grinch snarled with a snare. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. And then he growled, and his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew that all the Who boys and girls would wake up early and run for their toys. And then the noise. That's the one thing he hated the most, was the noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which is something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would hold hands and they would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I put up with this. I must stop Christmas from coming, but how? Then he got an idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he chuckled and he clucked. What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer, the Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the Grinch? Oh no, it did not. I can find a reindeer. I'll make one instead. And so he called his dog Max. Hey Max! And he took some red thread and he tied a big horn to the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh that he hitched up to old Max. And then the Grinch said, giddy up! And the sleigh started down towards the homes and the Whos, where they lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark, and quiet snow filled the air. And the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, said the old Grinchy Claus. And he climbed down the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, well then so could the Grinch. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. Those stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole room he took every present. Checkerboards, tricycles, popcorns, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags, and then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk into the icebox and he took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding and the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. Oh no, not the tree. Then the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard the small little coo of a dove. He turned around fast and he saw a small who. Little Cindy Lou Who, who was no more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd got out of bed for a cold drink of water. He stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But, you know, that old Grinch, he was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there and then I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child, and then he patted her head and he got her a drink and he sent her to bed. And when little Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went up the chimney and he stuffed the tree up. And the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, that old liar. All the walls were bare. Nothing was left but hooks and some wire. And then one speck of food that he left in the house. It was too small for even a little mouse. Then he did the same thing to all the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for their little Who mouses. It was 1/4 dawn and all the Who's still in bed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled, packed it with presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, the tinsel, the trimmings, and the trappings. Look it, he took it all. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with this load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh-pooh to the Who's," he said in his Grinchly humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up, and I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two, and then the Who's down in Whoville will cry, 'Boo-hoo.'" That's not very nice. Do you think he's going to dump all those toys? "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear. And did he hear the sound rising over the snow? He did. It started in low, and then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. This sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, and then he shook, and then, to his shocking surprise, every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, were singing without presents at all. It hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. The Grinch puzzled for 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, could be a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say, that Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he even, let's see what he did, himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. Thanks for listening, friends. I hope you have a great Christmas and you enjoyed the story. See you soon.